All right, well, we're going to get started. Thank you all so much for joining today, giving us your lunch period. As you do every month, we do not take this for granted at all. My name is Andriana Smith. I'm the current president of the local MGMA chapter, and I have a few board members joining me today. I just wanted to give some announcements before we begin. We're still in this crazy season of COVID, and as a board, we just want to encourage everyone who has an opportunity to get vaccinated. Please do. It is saving lives. It's helping those of us who are daily seeing folks who are being affected by COVID, healthcare workers, frontline workers, and our friends and families. Also, something just to keep in mind that has been brought to my attention since I'm not directly in the hospital is that our county needs blood. If you're able and can get to a blood center, please do. That's something that as a board, we're trying to organize an event just to really strongly encourage folks to go ahead and give blood. It's so life-saving right now. We keep hearing about hospitals being overcrowded and ICU units. Those folks need blood and plasma. So if you're able to, please, we strongly encourage you to get blood. And then just one other announcement, we're really trying to support those in our community who are helping to do the vaccinations. A lot of folks are volunteering. You all have been out there volunteering and helping. And so as a MGMA, we will be sponsoring lunch for a few of our few vaccination sites in our community. So more to come on that. But as we move in an effort to just really support the Memphis community in any way that we can as healthcare providers and project managers and project folks working out in the community and healthcare. Those are just some efforts that we're doing. But you're not here to talk and to listen to me. You're here to actually hear from Wendy. And I just want to give you a little bit about her before she gets started on her presentation. So Wendy Brotherton is coming to us from West Clinic today, and she has over 25 years of experience working in technical roles within transportation, healthcare, automotive, casino gaming, merchandising, and the Department of Defense in the Navy. Her diverse background in data science, statistical analysis, project management, process improvement, and automation provides a broad scope of expertise. She has led several successful modernization projects for those organizations, providing them innovative report solutions and analytical environments. West Cancer Center and the Research Institute, FedEx, and then AutoZone and the US Navy. So as always, this is recorded. So you can go back and listen to all of the great material that she is going to be giving during her presentation. I strongly encourage you just to take notes as well, but you can see this recording and others on our website. So Wendy, I'll give it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to come and speak about data and analytics, which happens to be my most favorite subject to speak about. Anybody that knows me knows how passionate I am about data transformation and analytics in general. I am going to try and recover a lot of material probably pretty quick. And like Adriana said, you can go back and maybe look at this deck. It's going to provide kind of a footprint for you to be able to step through to transform, whatever it is that you're looking at applying analytics to. So I'm going to start with telling you just a little bit about myself and my professional experience, which you've already heard a little bit of. And then I'm going to go into some digital transformation projects that I worked on in other industries. And then I'm going to talk about the opportunities for transformation in healthcare that I observed since I've been working within this role. And then some of the trends that I also came across. And then I'm going to finish up with what we're actually doing at West and how far we've made it through our transformation process. So anyway, I'll get started. As Adriana said, that I've been working with West since 2019, just roughly over a year and a half. I've been working on modernizing the analytics environment, the reporting, and the dashboards for the clinic. This is my very first experience in healthcare. and I'm really enjoying it. Like I said, I'm really engaged in my role. I'm excited to be participating in this, and I'm decided to go back to school this fall and pursue my master's in healthcare administration after all of this. I'm very excited about it. But anyway, I've spent time in automotive and engineering. I actually come from Detroit. My father owned one of the very first suppliers for General Motors back in the 50s. And then I've also had experience in gaming analysis with Harrah's in Louisiana, AutoZone here in Memphis, of course, and FedEx here in Memphis, and then also in Millington with Department of Defense Navy research work. So anyway, that's a little bit of my background, and it's also a lot of different technical equipment and software that I use to do all of this work that I've accumulated over the years. So as I said, here in automotive, the automotive industry transformed during the 80s and 90s mostly. Process engineering and how they used to assemble GM trucks and buses, it was all done on a drafts board. We all had pencils and pens, and everybody was doing everything manually. So in the 80s and 90s, when I was actually living in Michigan, I worked on AutoCAD analysis. Everything transformed with AutoCAD because everything was on the computer at that point, and all the product analysis was also done on the computer with CATIA and Unigraphics. So they transformed quite a while ago. Harrah's was my first job out of college. I got my bachelor's degree in finance. It was in financial analytics, and I was offered a position in gaming analysis. And Harrah's was really a fascinating company. This was in 2005. They were ahead of everybody else with customer segmentation. And the reason is because they were ahead of everybody with their loyalty card program and being able to capture the behaviors of their customers using their rewards program. So it was a great time to be in analysis, and it was a great time to work for this company. I was able to do customer segmentation analysis, labor analysis, space optimization using the layout of the casinos, and promotions analysis for any of the concerts and events that they were holding in slot tournaments. And I used IBM and Cognos during that time. I ended up moving to Memphis and worked for AutoZone and worked in retail, which is a completely different industry, and it was all sales, and they have over 4,000 stores, and all of the stores' transactional data was huge. So it was really big data. And big data at that time included trying to figure out customer purchasing behavior. And it was my first time of being exposed to really cluster analysis. And we used to cluster stores based on the types of products that would sell most frequently through the stores, and it wouldn't always be geographic. So it was really an analysis of behavior, purchasing behavior, and it was my first time to actually get involved in that sort of analysis. And we also did cannibalization, opening up new stores. It was spatial analytics, determining where geographically opening up new stores wouldn't impact the rest of the business. So. And we use SAS. So SAS is very common, I know, in a lot of different companies, they use it. It's a great tool for analytics. I then ended up working on an Office and Naval Research contract in Millington, and NAVMAC, which is the Naval Manpower Analysis Center, is based up there. The Office and Naval Research was tasked with trying to create a new model or a new computer system that would help figure out which sailors, which skill sets would be best to place on new ships. And the new ships are a lot different. They are modular. So you might have a ship that have different modules on it, but it was a different problem because a long time ago, they didn't have ships that had functional purposes. So this is a new problem. And this was the very first time that I worked with like straight up computer scientists and algorithm developers working on a new optimization model for the Navy. And then FedEx is shipment centric. So packages and shipment delays and spatial analytics and geographical analytics is really important in this space. FedEx has an amazing amount of resources, and they are actually transforming right now to the public cloud. So working for FedEx during this time was excellent opportunity. They are also clustering and trying to figure out ways to identify which customers utilize their online sales reporting portals. I worked on project that had to do with determining the locations of the Walgreens in relation to where our customers ship. So it was geospatial as well, some of the analytics I did. And I worked with all different kinds of tools in that organization, and it was wonderful. And I then was presented with the opportunity to work for West Cancer Center, and I had to try and understand healthcare. And I didn't know a whole lot about healthcare. And when I interviewed with Mitch, he was like, you know, it's okay, data is data. And I will be honest with you, I've worked in several different industries, and if you can understand what kind of business problem you want to solve, you can apply the same sort of tools and theory to that problem. So I noticed, though, in healthcare, it was very far behind with technology in some ways, and I was told this was not a shock, and I was like, okay. So I had experience, you know, working in these environments where I had to try and combine different data sources from very difficult areas, and so I said, okay, I got some work to do here. So we've been working. But this is a wonderful industry to be in right now for transformation. There is so much in terms of how much money is actually involved in this, and how many of these cloud providers are reaching out and trying to be the leaders in the healthcare space. So it's a good time right now for digital transformation for healthcare. Here's one thing I noticed. I said, oh, wow, Google Cloud Platform. So they're making great waves, you know, moving into the healthcare space right now, and they're trying to take on large accounts right now in Cleveland Clinic and the Cancer Society. I've seen this Mayo. So everybody's moving right now to try and get to the public cloud, because the public cloud provides you with efficiencies and ways and methods to use tools and APIs with machine learning and AI that you cannot really do on-prem, or at least do it efficiently on-prem. So my objective at West was digital transformation. And so you do that with data and processes and people. So there's going to be data and there's going to be people, and you're going to develop processes. And it seems pretty intuitive, but it can become quite difficult actually. So you have to have a roadmap. And so the very first thing I had to understand was like, okay, we have different types of analytics to solve this problem. I want to build an analytics platform and provide West with a way that they can improve their patient experience and the outcomes. And so you do that by providing different types of analytics, and you start with descriptive, okay? When you come in, there are usually going to be some sort of reports and you know, monitoring system, so which looks at things in the past. It shows the trends and the things that have happened in the past, and that is your descriptive analytics. And then you're going to move into diagnostic. You know, why did these things happen? That's almost like a postmortem. You're like, why did, you know, and it's more ad hoc related as well. And then you move into, once your data construct gets well enough established, you can start to get into your predictive and your prescriptive. And predictive means you're trying to predict what is going to happen in the future based on the data that you've seen or you've noticed in the past and observed. And then finally, prescriptive, meaning, okay, if we look at this data in the past and it's done this before, and this is the behavior that's happened before, let's have an automatic trigger or something that we can do to mitigate it in the future. So how do you start, you know, how do you start down this path? You have to have the talent and the people that can do this. And to be honest with you, it isn't cheap. The data scientists and data science is in high demand right now. It's hard to find people with these skills that you can have working with you long enough. And the problem that companies and organizations are dealing with is you'll hire somebody for this role, and they actually want to do the modeling and they want to do the work that we're associated with the machine learning and the AI, but they can't, because they walk in the door and whatever organization they're working for does not have their data construct laid out. They don't have data available to them readily. And these particular individuals will come in and they won't be able to do the work that they were tasked to do. And then they lose interest and then they move on. And so that is a problem within the data science industry. So you're going to need a data engineer. You're going to need somebody to work your databases and your data and work on the ETL processes, which is meaning, you know, you go from the collection from maybe it's your EMR or whatever it may be for different types of data sources. And then you have to cleanse that data and you have to provide it in a format that the data scientists and the analysts can use. So a data engineer or a DBA is going to be very important. And then you need to have the analysts that can actually go out into your organization, work with the functionals, try and figure out what it is that they're trying to accomplish or solve, and they help build the tools using the data. The scientist behind this is going to be working the actual modeling and the algorithm development and working in strategy. So there's really 3 levels to this. So what do you do after you hire and you source your talent? You got to go back and you got to survey the landscape. And a lot of organizations don't do this well. And what you need to do is you need to understand what it is that your organization or your practice is trying to accomplish. You need to have those pillars of your organization. When you have those pillars established, you then go and you say, okay, what is it that I can use to measure these pillars? And you develop your key performance indicators based on those pillars. And then you want to try and understand, okay, how much do we want to move the needle on these things? And then you come up with a goal. And then once you have a goal, we'll be able to identify possibly then the data sources that we're going to need to go and collect in order to obtain the information that you're going to need to measure that goal. So that takes some time. That's a survey. And then you got to go out and, like I said, go grab your data. So this is a challenging part for a lot of organizations. You're going to have data that is on on-prem data sources, like a database that runs in your office or in your practice. Some people are using cloud providers already, and they're using different vendors for this work right now at this time. And really, it's you know, and spreadsheets and hand jam data sources is very common still. A lot of people are just working in Excel or Access or some other computer-based solution right now for analytics. So actually having the expertise to go combine all of this information and put it in a data warehouse of some sort in order to do the analytics is really a challenge. So once your data though is available in a data warehouse and it's in one location or that you can run analytics on it, you're going to have to try and visualize it somehow. And this is a whole nother aspect to data analysis. I mean, not only do you, most of the time you'll have somebody that'll pull some information for you and you'll get it in a spreadsheet. But spreadsheet's not helpful because if you look at a spreadsheet and it has a bunch of numbers on it and it has some sort of takeaways, you need some kind of summary or some sort of way to look at that data. Well, the wonderful thing about data visualization today is that a lot of this can be automated, meaning the table behind a lot of these visualizations that you can build using Tableau or Power BI can be updated. And as they update, it updates your data visualization or your Tableau dashboard automatically. So it doesn't have to be rebuilt all the time, like a spreadsheet does in Excel. So there is a complete difference in the type of servicing that you can provide your practice or your organization if you can do more than what you have in Excel. So, and this is really what helps leaders digest the data in a way that they can understand, and then they can make some decisions and move forward with a decision. And the last step is automation. So let's say provide some sort of visualization or some sort of answer to a problem that was given, but how often do we want to have this updated? That can be a problem because a lot of the analysis that people do is an ad hoc basis. It might have been pulled once and it hasn't been automated, and automating it is really where you see value, because this is what's going to hone you in on a goal with any of those KPIs, because you cannot see change unless you pull this data on a consistent basis. It's pulled consistently and it's pulled on, in terms of a time frame that makes sense for what you're trying to accomplish. And this requires a lot of different tools as well. And so, like I said, going through this and working in all the different industries, there isn't one good, perfect tool to do any of this work. It's really a combination of all of it. And it requires somebody that's willing to go learn. You have to be willing to learn new platforms, technology changes, and applying it is a whole nother ball game. But once you apply it and you can see where you can go with this information and these tools, you can really change your business. So I developed a roadmap for WAST, and over the past year here, so 2020 was really a period for me to learn. I had to go through the clinic. I had to understand what we were doing, the whole patient experience, the flow. Where was the data being collected? When you have an individual that's working on your staff, what are the tools that they're using that is capturing the data? So going through the whole clinic took me some time. Understanding healthcare and understanding the terminology took me some time in oncology. But then once that's done, you can start to see, all right, this is where we go for all of this information. And then we start to move forward now with some technology adoption. So now we're in Q1 now of 2021, and we actually are migrating now to public cloud and doing some work now, which is very exciting. But this first whole year was, more of the descriptive analytics portion. Where are we as, a practice, and what's going on, and what kind of things can we look into, and what do we want to do? Looking forward, though, we're going to be creating new dashboards and reporting and some actual refining our data curation. I'm going to develop a more substantial data warehouse than we've ever had before. And then going through and innovating with some new models that we're going to work on at the clinic. So this was the very first thing I did when I walked in the door. I was a Tableau server administrator at FedEx, and I said, "You have a Tableau server?" And I said, "I need on that server." And I got on the server and I updated everything on the server. And if you've never used Tableau or Power BI, it's fascinating. It's a really intuitive type format to go and look at your data. If I click into a certain folder that has to do with a certain organization, you can look at the dashboards. The dashboards are automated, and you can look at your visual analytics in a really organized fashion. One of the very first projects I worked on for the clinic was our provider portal, and this portal gives a provider a snapshot of where they are with their practice. They have got drug add-ons, radiology add-ons they can track. They can go through and see if they have any unsigned office charges or notes or missing notes. And it really gives them some visibility into what's going on in the data behind the scenes and allows them to do some of the cleaning up and the curation, which helps us with the clinic in doing any type of analysis. So this has been helpful. It provides information about, RVUs, and then, their office visit trends over the last 6 months. This is another project I worked on. This has to do with care managers reaching out to patients who might be considered high risk. So we want to keep patients out of the hospital. We want to provide them with a level of care to be able to handle pain. And this is a tool that helps take the whole population of whoever may be in maybe a value-based program or what's so, and it will narrow down to a patient list that is based upon data elements that I was able to extract. So I'm able to tell what type of cancer they have, what stage of cancer they have, what kind of comorbidities they may have, and their hospital admissions history, because we track that and capture that data. And with that, I put together, more or less a formula or an algorithm which determines which patients might be considered more high risk than others, and then incorporated a 14-day change. And if a patient ended up, changing substantially over the last 14 days, we'll go, wow, we'll be able to highlight those particular patients and reach out to them and see if there's something that we can do to help. And the last one I'm going to talk about is our modeling project that we're going to work on that has to do with patient delays. So patient experience at the clinic is a challenge. They sometimes come to the clinic and they have multiple appointments scheduled. And the issue is if we have one patient or we have one appointment that might, be delayed, it'll impact the rest of the experience for the day. And so we want to try and find better ways of optimizing scheduling our providers, scheduling patients to come in for treatments, and be able to really change the way that patient care is handled at West Cancer. So, and this requires, some real algorithm development, and we're very excited to be working on this project. Migration to public cloud, like I said, we're working on pushing. Some information is always going to be located on-prem in the clinic, but when you are talking about an analytics environment, not every piece of data needs to go to the cloud, but only the items and the data elements that are required for analysis. So identifying which items we want to push up, identifying what kind of use cases or projects that are POCs we want to work on is going to determine what data goes up there. And then we're going to do the data modeling and determine, okay, if this type of appointment structure happened in the past and things drop on the schedule in the future, is there some way that we can mitigate, a challenge in the future on the schedule? And so it requires tools and machine learning that we're going to be able to deploy in the cloud. That's really about what I'm here to talk about, and I'm about done, and I would be happy to answer any questions anybody would have with anything here.
Hey, Wendy, that was really interesting, fascinating, and I want to know more. I guess a general question, that you run into when you're new or you're introducing, new things in a practice might be pushback. It might come from physicians. It might come from other people stuck in the same ways, doing the same things for a lot of years. Are you encountering that so far, or what's the transition been like?
So it's funny, working in different industries, the people in different industries are different. They are. And I've never worked with providers. I've never worked with, at FedEx, I had to sometimes come in contact with pilots or people that are in totally different roles that have different perspectives about data. I had pushback when I worked in Harris, because I was responsible for the promotions calendar, the analytics for it, and we would have meetings with finance. And it was like the report card time almost, you know, for this organization. So it could get a little iffy. You walk in there and you're like, okay, you guys planned this on the calendar this past month, but it ended up costing, you know, the casino this amount of money. And, you know, you're there with finance. And so things can get sensitive, you know, and that's one of the things I noticed. The people in every type of industry handle data and analytics differently. Some people welcome it and some people are a little apprehensive. They don't really want to know what's going on in the data because they don't know what it's going to show or if they're going to get in trouble. Or, you know, some people, when you go talk to them and say, okay, what are we trying to solve here? What are you trying to understand about, you know, the problem in the analytics you're doing? It's interesting. You'll find folks that are really forthcoming to be helpful and want to help and know. And there's others that are kind of worried about, oh, am I going to be exposed? And what we find is if I can get on their side and say, hey, this is really just to help you, bring you visibility so that you can see where you are and not to get you in trouble. We can use this and move forward together, and I can provide you with things that will be easier for you to look at versus you having to pull data and mash a spreadsheet all the time and make your job easier. And so if you approach people in a helpful manner, they'll open up and they'll understand, okay, this isn't about getting me in trouble. It's about trying to make our job easier and really better for the organization in whole.
Are your roles and responsibilities, is that new to West, or were they doing this work before you got there?
They were doing some of this work before. You know, they had people that were doing analytics there, but I don't know if we were ever heading towards the data modeling and the machine learning until I showed up. And I think the cloud construct, when I was like, all right, we need to go to the public cloud, everybody was kind of like, why? You know, I had to explain why. You know, okay, this is where we're going. I mean, there's natural language processing and there's computer vision, and we've got APIs now that can analyze obviously radiation scans, you know, radiology scans, sorry. So we got scans, and they have technology now that'll redact images for radiology scans so that you don't have to worry about PHI floating around. I mean, they've got tools that are really amazing that we can utilize, you know, in healthcare. It's just a matter of, you know, doing it, putting it together, so.
Clint, this is Mitch Graves. I can tell you that we dabbled in analytics with not a lot of success. We saw data. It was sometimes older data. The accuracy of it was limited. And, you know, when you're showing stuff to physicians, one, it's got to be accurate, got to be easy to understand, and it's got to be timely. And one of the, I don't know if you showed that screen where patient satisfaction, obviously one of the things that we harp on about trying to make sure we're improving. Well, it wasn't timely getting to the physician. So, you know, we'd show them 90-day-old data, and they were like, yeah, that's old stuff. That's not how, that doesn't happen today. And so whether it's number of appointments, add-ons that we try to discourage. So it's just, Wendy's done a phenomenal job. And the scientist title is definitely, she is a scientist of this data. But we didn't do it well. We had analytics, but we didn't do it well at all. And, you know, again, we're getting actionable data in a timely manner. I don't know how, truthfully, how we ran the business without it, to be honest. So it's well worth the investment. Even though Wendy said it's expensive, but it's well
It is
worth it.
expensive.
It pays for itself. So I highly recommend it.
Well, that's my follow-up, and then I'll shut up and let other people ask questions. But, so it sounds like from the investment standpoint, you went out and purposely tried to find someone with this skill set because she obviously didn't have a healthcare background, and, there was a certain amount of research and effort that went into that side of it too.
Sure.
Well, and I wouldn't worry about if a person has healthcare background in this industry as an analytics person, I would say that's great. But if they didn't, I wouldn't let it deter you from hiring somebody. I mean, really, if you're looking for somebody that understands data analytics, they'll be able to apply it to any use case, really. I mean, now you might have to have a functional explain things to them and say, this is what we're trying to do. But this type of technology can be applied, and you don't have to be in healthcare.
No, not at all. Wendy's been a fast study, but had all the skill sets of the data side. So again, it was a learning curve. We all speak a different language. And so it took her, that was the biggest thing, was orienting her to what a data serve, what a DOS was, or, but she has been a fast learner and just done an amazing job. And again, we've been able to see ways that we've improved the business, from understanding our scheduling process, being able to put in more, infusion slots into our infusion schedule. So it's just different pieces. The physician, on how timely they sign their charts and charges. Now that's in front of them in the dashboard she's built, I'll get a call. Rarely when I get a call, I'm not going to be able to make my 72-hour window and get my charts signed. Is that going to hurt me? And I'm like, no, but I'm glad you're looking and you understand that. But it's just been an invaluable tool for the physicians to get a snapshot of really real time what's happening. Again, we are great at showing a month-old report, 60 days, 90 days, but you put something in front of them that they can actually see, that they make a change. It's changed the whole dynamics of reporting at the physician level.
Hey, Wendy. Hey, it's Jessica. I work at Le Bonheur, and we, in our clinics, a lot of our kids see multiple subspecialists. And so I'm really interested in what you guys are doing with your, if one visit runs late, what happens to the rest of the day, the trickle down. What systems are you pulling data? Like, we track minutes in clinic by appointment. That's something that we have goals around and track. But as you're starting that work, what data, what are you pulling that's going to help you sort of predict and change your schedule?
So we know when the appointments are scheduled, obviously. It's from the EMR. We know when everything's scheduled, but we also know what actually happens with the patient, because the rooming status for the patient changes as they move through the clinic. So our EMR has a rooming status. So if a patient moves from, let's say, check-in, and then they actually go to, let's say their provider for a med-onc visit, and they end up in that area. Well, when they check in over there, the rooming status changed. They're waiting to go see their med-onc. And then if they get pulled back into the room, their rooming status changes again. So I have a whole series of timestamps for patient flow throughout the whole clinic. And I can compare those to what has actually been scheduled and say, wow, okay, was this patient actually pulled back, on schedule or on time or not? And if they weren't, I'll be able to tell. And then I'll know why they're delayed for their future appointments, or if there's problems. And then we can isolate maybe, well, where did this delay originally occur? Was it because the patient arrived on site late, or was it the check-in process took too long? So it just helps you identify, but that's what we're using our EMR.
Okay. And we have all those timestamps, but I think we don't use it really in any predictive sort of way. We sort of, we know it takes an hour and a half, and we have timestamps, throughout the process too, but we don't really do anything with that.
Right. And that's the goal. That's the goal of this exercise, is actually to be actionable about it. And so that's where the data science comes in. So you can build a model that'll say, all right, if this particular provider has this amount, this many patient appointments on this particular location on this day, and then how many patients were actually scheduled, what do those patients have prior to that appointment, if anything. These types of things of indicators, when we actually find the cases where they're delayed, and once you find they're delayed, you can try and identify what it was about those delays were in common with each other. So it's kind of a clustering process. We'll go, oh, those patients came from this lab or something, or this, you know, and you can identify, all right, you can group those. Once you group those, if you have future appointments scheduled and they have those same type of characteristics, you'll be able to identify those ahead of time and say, okay, well, we can't do that because, you know, that lab was tasked because it had that much volume going on prior to it, or whatever it may be. So it's identifying when there is a delay, and you take that whole population together, that population, you try and find the commonalities about those particular journeys that you can use to identify potential future challenges. So that's what you're doing. And it's big data. I mean, it's a lot of information. That's why you need somebody that is like a data scientist or somebody that understands how to run algorithms, because you need to be able to run this through, you know, a model, because you can't do this by hand. I mean, that's.
Yeah, yeah, we know.
You try to, and I was like, no, we have to get out of this business. It's too hard.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Yep.
A lot of data.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and it's only going to get worse, because we're right now we're dealing with like hand generated data. When I say hand generated, we're changing the rooming status. Let's say we are in a world, I'm not even going to go crazy here, maybe 3 years from now, and we're dealing with wearables data too. Let's say your patients are raising their watches, and we're going to have all that information too. So now my care managers don't just have a risk acuity model that has to do with the behaviors of them entering like an ED or something, but now I've got like biometrics that we can start looking at, you know, which might be interesting. You never know, you know, like, hey, these patients started having these issues prior to them being admitted or prior to having problems, and like we can identify that potentially in the future. But processing all that data isn't going to happen, you know, on your server that's running in your clinic. I mean, this is why people use cloud computing, and it's scalable. You don't have to push all of that data up there. Only the things that you're going to want to do this data modeling on. So
very interesting. And with some of your risk extrapolation, are you guys pulling in any payer data as well, or are you relying on all of your own, what's coming out of your EMR?
it's our EMR. It's all of our information. Yeah. But I mean, we have other information that we have too from CMS, you know, that we can use, and we have other information, you know, we can use that as well, you know, with our OCM program and that's external to us. Our hospital data is external to us, but we subscribe to, you know, a feed so that we're able to tell when our patients enter hospitals in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. So we've been accumulating that data on our own. It required us, you know, going out and subscribing to it. And I was like, okay, we're going to take this and append. And so we have records of our own patients, you know, admitting or having inpatient procedures. So we use that externally.
Yeah, we have that too. We don't do anything. I mean, we use it for like daily follow-up calls, you know, but then we don't, it's nothing forward thinking that we're doing with it, I guess. We're still in the Excel spreadsheet version. Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Well, I can keep talking about data, but you guys are going to get bored.
This is fascinating. This is fascinating. I know yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, but I think I'm green with envy today.
Oh, I was almost hoping this was St. Patrick's Day, but I probably don't know what our attendance would have been like, you know?
Well, there was a question in the chat from Allison, and I think, Mitch, you basically touched on it, but what measurable improvements did you see?
Yeah, I'll let Mitch speak to that one, so.
Yeah, I mean, it has been everything from improvement in our denial rate, like the add-ons. That's where a physician's got a patient in clinic and says, I've got to have a CT scan today, or I've got to have an MR, and doesn't give us enough time to get a pre-auth on that. that's dropped down almost next to nothing now that they see their data compared to the other physicians. You know, their mindset was, well, that's only one patient for me to add on as a CT scan. Well, they forget we got 60 other physicians doing the same thing. And all of a sudden radiology get backlogged, which threw us behind in the office visit, which may have thrown us behind in a chemo infusion after the office visit. So, you know, when you come to West, we try to get everything done in one day. Start out with your labs. If you got any imaging, you see your physician, and then you may end up having chemo. And so if one of those areas gets behind, it causes the entire clinic to become behind. And that's what Wendy's taken and is talking about, you know, trying to predict when that's going to happen by looking at our history through this. So, you know, it's everything from we've expanded capacity because we understand our scheduling better. It's reduced denials. It's gotten the physicians engaged in models of patient satisfaction. So it's almost, again, anything we tried to manage without data or old data, as I mentioned earlier. And that's just tough to get the physician's attention on. Now that it's real-time data, they pay more attention to it. And I get more phone calls that they've been out on their dashboard. You know, when we first roll this out, there weren't a lot of them getting on the dashboard, but they're doing it on a frequent basis. So it's really, you know, again, a lot of different financial improvement, process improvement, but it's also having the physician on the same page of what our strategic initiatives are of the clinic.
Yeah, I think that's key, getting that engagement from all different sectors, so everyone's working towards the same goal, that quality for the patients and the organization. Were there any other questions that folks had? Wendy, this was great. I mean, this was
I didn't know how long it was going to go because, to be honest with you, I didn't time it, and I was like, oh shoot, I hope I can get done in time. So I'm glad it got through. It was a lot of content. So if anybody has any questions, and feel free to reach out to me about any of that. So
absolutely. Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat, and if anybody wants to unmute, now is the time while Wendy is here. All right. Well, again, this is will be on our website. Oh, okay. I'm seeing great information. Yes, great information, Wendy. And thank you for your time. Mitch, thank you as well for chiming in and just letting us know how this is affecting, you know, operations and staff. We really appreciate it. Again, we don't take your time lightly, so we want to bring you all content that is helpful for how you do your work, and hopefully this will influence paths that you all take in the future. Everything is recorded on our website if you need to go back and listen to any of the material. We are skipping April. We'll see you all again in May, and you'll get a website. So I look forward to seeing everyone then. Thank you for today.
great. Thanks.